of freedom. Ghana, land of freedom. Toils of the brave and the sweat of their labors. Toils of the brave which have brought results.
Mariana Bornhold. I served in Ghana 87 to 89. I was stationed at Winnipeg, which was the local version of what the British called it when it was a colony. Windy.
Which have brought results.
One of the things I was teaching at Advanced Teacher Training College, and that was kind of, well, I won't say it was a downer, but it was not what I expected. I had retired. I was of retirement age. I was interested in another career, and I had spent my life in human services as a therapist. So I went to community college, got a motorcycle certificate, took agriculture courses, and prepared to go in the bush. What did they do? They stationed me at university to teach counseling psychology.
Everybody, toils of the brave and the sweat of...
Well, the other thing I could talk about would be I was robbed in Nigeria. And I got into this bus. I was the only passenger. I thought, this is weird. And it was. So when they got me to the airport, they asked for my passport and my money.
I'm sorry.
So supposedly this was to change Naira into cedis, which is the Ghanaian currency. So I didn't hesitate. I figured I'd better cooperate with two burly guys. And I remembered that one of my students had said when they came back the second year that she had been chased in the forest by Nigerians, and she was convinced that they were going to kill her and take her organs for whatever they do, witch doctors do. But she escaped, so I thought, well, it isn't going to happen in the airport. What can I do? Cooperate? Well, they took my passport and my Naira. I had tucked my CDs in my bra because I knew I was going to stay at the hotel in Accra before I went back to Winnipeg. And I just sat and said, you wait. So I waited. And this little kid came and brought me my passport and, of course, no money. So I went to a guard and told him what had happened. And he just put me on the plane with the crew. And I got back to Ghana. Then it sort of came together, and I thought, you're very fortunate. You're so dumb you don't even know when you're in danger. So I guess those are stories I think about every once in a while. But all in all, it was a good experience.
Brian Arbic. I was in Ghana from 1990 to 1992, and I taught math and physics at roughly a high school level. It's the British system, they call it O-level. And I knew I was going to go to graduate school someday, but I personally didn't want to go immediately. So I was looking around for other things to do. In the meantime, I wanted some kind of international travel experience, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what exactly I wanted. And then one day I was talking to a returned Peace Corps volunteer who had been in Tanzania, and he, like me, was a physics type. And by the end of that conversation, I had decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to join the Peace Corps, although in the end I never made it to Tanzania.
Okay.
Well, maybe someday, but haven't been there yet.
And and the sweat of their labors, toils of the
So Domingo, the town I was posted in, was a long ways away from the capital, a long ways. And one time, I got up really early in the morning and made the trip all the way down to the capital, and it was a really long, brutal day. And I decided that from then on, I was not going to do the whole trip in one day. I was going to break it up and stop at Kumasi as a midpoint city and make it a 2-day trip from then on. So then, it just so happened that right after I made that decision, I met a Catholic brother, some people call them monks, and he said, "Oh, whenever you're passing through Kumasi, you should stay in our monastery." Well, then I went down to Accra, and it was some kind of Peace Corps meeting, and I was traveling back up country with one of my Peace Corps colleagues, a woman, and we decided, well, where are we going to stay? And I said, well, I've just been told I could stay at a monastery. Now, I guess, you know, traveling with you, that might seem a bit odd, but anyway, let's give it a try. And so we went there, and I said, is it okay if I stay here with my friend? And they said, yeah, that's sure. I wasn't dating Victoria, by the way, but and we went downstairs to where we were going to sleep, and they had taken the 2 beds and put them together in a monastery. So I said, you know, Victoria and I are just friends. We're not dating or anything. And he said, I understand life. I thought that was funny.
Very good.
of their labors, toils of the brave, which are brought.
Years later, I mean, this was actually just a few years ago, which was 18 or so years after I left the country, I started all at once hearing from a bunch of my former students. So, you know, I'd gone years without hearing from many of them. And then all of a sudden, you know, I get an email from one saying, oh, you know, when you used to do those demonstrations, because that's one thing I did in physics, is I would demonstrate, here's how a magnet works, here's this, here's that. And I didn't think that much of it, you know. It seemed like an obvious thing to do for physics. And one of them said, well, one time you did this demonstration on magnets, and which I don't remember that. But anyway, and he said, and that inspired me to make a board game using magnets, and now I've sold that board game to Walmart. And I looked it up on the web, you know, and it was like $1 million. I thought, and it was amazing, you know. I mean, I don't remember that lesson. You know, I think you were saying this earlier, that you just never know where things will lead.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was neat. That was neat. And then there was another one who, you know, remembered me well, and he had his own little factory making shear butter in Ghana. And then another one was getting a master's in public health at a university in Britain. I can't remember which one. And then another one who was probably my strongest student in science, although I had some of these other guys are pretty sharp too, but he was probably the sharpest one. And he, actually, this is a funny story. He said, oh, hi, master, this is Ansang Kojo, and now I'm getting a PhD at University of Alberta in Canada. And
Of their labors, toils of the brave, which have brought results.